My husband makes newborn daughter call his mistress mom. At our daughter's 1-month celebration, my husband of 3 years handed our child over to his mistress right in front of me. He even encouraged the baby to call her mom. I rushed forward, trying to stop him, but he shoved me aside. "Why are you so selfish?" he scolded. "Ruby can't have children of her own. She just wants to experience what it feels like to be a mother. Besides, the baby is still young. What's the harm in calling her mom once or twice?" Ruby, his mistress, looked down at me, holding my child in her arms as she played the victim. "I'm so sorry, Zoe," she said softly. "This is the only regret I'll ever have in my life. Sam went through so much trouble to make this happen for me, and I don't want to let him down. Don't worry, once the baby grows up a bit, I'll return her to you and leave." I got up slowly, brushing off the dust, and replied calmly, "Fine, I'll make this easy for both of you. 3 years of marriage, it's time to end it." Chapter 1. After I spoke those words, the looks in everyone's eyes shifted from shock to disdain. In their minds, I was hopelessly in love with Sam. From high school to university, and from graduation to work, I had chased Sam for years, playing the role of his devoted simp. In front of him, I had long since abandoned any semblance of dignity. Sam froze, his retort caught in his throat, unable to respond to what I just said. "What?" he stammered. He likely never imagined I would agree so easily. After all, whenever Ruby's name came up before, it always led to heated arguments, whether it was the time he left me stranded in the rain to rush to Ruby's side, or when he barely came home during my pregnancy while Ruby's social media constantly flaunted their daily interactions. I had fought every time. But now, I no longer felt the need to argue. When he handed our daughter Emma to Ruby, when he encouraged Emma to call Ruby mom, I finally woke up. The marriage I fought so hard to secure was, I realized, about to end today. I looked at Sam calmly. "Well, then, I wish you two a happy family. But Emma, I will be taking her with me." Sensing the shift in the atmosphere, Emma flailed her little arms in the air. When she didn't catch the scent she was used to, she began to cry. The sound of her wails pierced through me like a knife. Emma had been nothing but a sweet and well-behaved baby since the day she was born. She rarely cried or fussed. Even during feedings, I had always thought of her as a gift from above. But now I realized, from the moment she was conceived, Emma had been nothing more than a part of Sam's plan. Sam had never cared about Emma. To him, she was just a tool to bring joy to Ruby. Fighting back the urge to cry, I clenched my teeth and glared at Sam. "Emma is hungry. She needs to come with me now." Emma flailed wildly, clearly refusing to be held by Ruby. Ruby frowned, a hint of annoyance flashing in her eyes as she looked at Emma. She reached out, trying to soothe Emma, but after several failed attempts, her eyes filled with tears. "Looks like Emma doesn't really like me. Does she?" Ruby casually handed Emma over to the bodyguard behind her, then leaned into Sam's arms. Seeing this, I quickly stepped forward, taking Emma into my arms and gently comforting her. Sam patted Ruby's hand and comforted her gently. "It's okay. She's still young and doesn't recognize people yet. Give it some time. I'll let Emma spend more time with you until she listens to you. From now on, she's your daughter too." Hearing these words, I felt a deep sense of disgust. Holding Emma tightly, I ignored Ruby's provocative gaze and looked straight at Sam. "Sam, we're getting a divorce. I will take Emma with me." Ruby's expression turned to one of shock, and even Sam looked at me in disbelief. But soon, his expression turned to irritation. "Zoe, divorce isn't something you use as a tool for your tantrums." I didn't say anything. I turned in silence, heading straight for the door. Sam's voice echoed behind me. "Zoe, don't go too far." At the same time, I heard Ruby trying to calm him down. "It's okay, Sam. Emma must be hungry, and Zoe is probably just anxious. I'm sure she didn't mean what she said to upset you." Chapter 2. Walking out of the hotel, I could no longer hold back my tears. The guilt I felt towards Emma almost overwhelmed me. I suddenly felt like an utter failure. Because of my simp love, Sam had hurt me without any scruples, convinced that I could never leave him. And now, even my own daughter almost ended up in someone else's arms. Emma's little face was flushed from crying, and my tears fell uncontrollably. I gently squeezed her tiny hand. It's okay. Mommy is here. As long as Mommy is here, everything will be all right. Emma no longer needed someone like Sam to be her father. It wasn't until the early morning that Sam came home. He pushed open the bedroom door, and the smell of alcohol immediately hit my nose. I frowned, a wave of nausea rising from my stomach. Sam's cheeks were flushed, and when he saw me sitting on the bed, he threw his coat aside and laid down beside me. Instinctively, I got up to leave, but he grabbed my hand. Sam looked at me, his bleary eyes seeming to carry a hint of appeasement. Are you mad? Don't worry. There's nothing between Ruby and me. It's just that she had an accident and can't have children. So it's her only regret. I just wanted to cheer her up. And besides, wouldn't it be good for Emma to have someone else to take care of her? As he spoke, Sam leaned in closer to me. I may have said some harsh words today, but you're just being too petty. I only wanted to help her. You're making too big a deal out of this, and you shouldn't use divorce as a petty threat in the future. How would it look if people heard? Sam's words, however, made me feel a strange sense of irony. When he let Emma call Ruby Mom, when he publicly declared that Emma would be Ruby's child, did he think about me? Did he consider how those around us would view me? I pulled away from his touch and looked at him coldly. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. Just as I was about to open the door, my wrist was grabbed firmly. Sam looked at me, his eyes full of impatience. I've already explained myself. What else do you want, Zoe? How could you be so selfish? Ruby will never have children of her own. What's the harm in letting Emma call her mom? I stared coldly at Sam, the man I had loved for so many years. Now, all I felt was revulsion. I shook his hand off and opened the door. You know exactly what your intentions are toward Ruby, but I absolutely will not allow you to involve Emma. I already told you today. I want a divorce. With that, I walked out of the bedroom toward the guest room. Behind me, I heard the sounds of things being smashed. The guest room was next to Emma's nursery. I pushed open the door, seeing Emma sleeping peacefully, and felt my heart settle. I bent down to kiss Emma's forehead, whispered a soft goodnight to her, and then went to sleep in the guest room. Chapter 3. Early the next morning, Sam was nowhere to be found. I wasn't surprised. Ever since I got pregnant, Sam had been home less and less. Where he went was not something I needed to ask anymore. I got up and went to Emma's nursery. When I opened the door, the bed was empty, Emma was gone. Panic surged through me as I almost tore the room apart searching for her. But there was no sign of Emma. A deep sense of fear enveloped me, and I shakily took out my phone to call the police. But the next second, I saw the trending news headline. Hashtag the president of Shinsher Group attends an event with his wife and daughter. Hashtag. I clicked in, and in the video, Ruby was holding onto Sam's arm, while in their embrace was my Emma. Emma's nose was red, as if she had been crying. Seeing that, my heart twisted in pain. I knew Sam wouldn't answer my call, that much was clear to me, so I grabbed my coat, rushed out of the house, and sped towards the event venue. The event had just ended, and Ruby, with her arm wrapped around Sam's, walked gracefully towards the luxury car parked outside. Emma was still sleeping peacefully in her arms. I got out of the car and strode up quickly. Seeing me, Ruby feigned surprise. Oh, Zoe, what are you doing here? I ignored her and turned to look at Sam. Emma is still so young. How could you bring her to a place like this? What if she got scared? Sam looked indifferent. Why would she be that delicate? Ruby missed Emma, and since there was an event today, I brought her along. See, she's perfectly fine. Ruby smiled, adding, yeah, Zoe, you're worrying too much. I didn't answer her. Instead, I went straight up and took Emma from her arms. Despite my hurried actions, Emma showed no signs of waking up. Fear clutched my heart, and I quickly touched her face. It was burning hot. I shook Emma gently. Emma? Emma! But she remained unresponsive. I turned to Sam, who was stunned, and shouted, Sam, she's your daughter. Emma's had a fever for so long, her forehead is burning up. And you didn't even notice? Sam seemed at a loss for words. When did it happen? I didn't notice. Chapter 4. I didn't have time to argue with them any longer. I drove straight to the nearest hospital. Once there, I only felt at ease after they put Emma on an 4-drip. The doctor said that if we had come in any later, Emma might have been in real danger. As I looked at Emma, peacefully asleep, guilt surged through my heart again. I wiped the tears that had fallen from the stress and called my parents. Mom answered quickly, and I spoke in a choked voice. Mom, I want to divorce Sam. There was a pause on the other end, and then she anxiously asked, "What happened? Did something happen?" I explained everything from beginning to end, and I could hear my dad fuming in the background. Sam is heartless. Emma is still so young. She's his daughter. My mom also expressed her frustration. Bring Emma back home. I'll take care of everything for you. Mom had a lot of connections in the business world and knew many famous lawyers. It wouldn't be hard to find someone to handle my divorce case. I nodded, then touched Emma's forehead again. The fever had gone down. I let out a sigh of relief and stayed by Emma's side for the rest of the day. After a full day and night of 4 treatment, Emma finally woke up. My mom came to the hospital to help look after Emma while I went home to pack. There wasn't much to pack. I only took the necessities. As I stepped out of the house, Sam's car pulled up in front of me. Ruby got out of the car with Sam, and when she saw the suitcase in my hand, she looked surprised. Zoe, where are you going? Sam followed her gaze to the luggage in my hand, narrowing his eyes. His expression immediately darkened. Zoe, what do you mean by this? I looked at him coldly. We're getting a divorce. Do I still have a reason to stay here? Sam grabbed me once again, his voice cold. Who said you could leave? Ruby chimed in from the side. Sam, Zoe must just be upset right now. If you calm her down, maybe everything will be fine. After all, what happened with Emma yesterday was indeed my fault. Ruby's words were undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire. Sure enough, the next second Sam let go of my arm. It was just a fever. What could possibly happen? Zoe, can you stop blowing things out of proportion? Acting all nervous every day, what's the point? Sam's sarcastic remarks kept replaying in my ears, and I could no longer hold back my anger. I raised my hand and slapped him. Sam looked at me, his eyes full of disbelief, while Ruby rushed over to check on him. Are you okay, Sam? I sneered and pulled up Ruby's social media posts. Petty and selfish. Am I? Sam, why don't you take a look at what you've done? When Emma was born, did you ever really care about her? When Emma was sick, who were you with? Do I really need to remind you of these things one by one? Ruby's eyes filled with tears. Zoe, I know you're blaming me. I'm about to go abroad and won't bother you anymore. Zoe, please make up with Sam. Seeing Ruby like this only made me feel disgusted. I sneered and slapped Ruby as well. Now it was Sam's turn to panic. He immediately shielded Ruby, who screamed. What are you doing? He shouted. I scoffed. Get lost. You're an eyesore. The divorce papers will be in your hands tomorrow. Make sure you sign them. As I dragged my suitcase into the car, Sam's enraged voice echoed behind me. Zoe, don't you regret this? Chapter 5. Emma was taken back home by my mother, and I drove directly to my parents' house. Seeing Emma sleeping peacefully, I finally relaxed. My mother came over and patted me on the shoulder. Don't worry, dear. The lawyer I found is very well known. We will definitely fight for custody of Emma. You've been through so much. I nodded, and the grievances and emotions I'd bottled up for days finally erupted. I threw myself into my mom's arms and cried. 3 days after the divorce agreement was sent to Sam, he still hadn't signed it. I had my lawyer notify Sam about the divorce lawsuit, and that's when Sam finally called me. Zoe, what do you want? Isn't making a fuss over the divorce agreement enough for you? Now you want to sue? What happened last time was my fault, but I genuinely didn't notice anything wrong with Emma. All right, stop this nonsense. I'm apologizing. And you should try to understand me too. Ruby has known me for so many years. She just returned to the country and was diagnosed with an issue that means she can't have kids anymore. She's really pitiful. He paused, then sighed. There's a banquet tomorrow. Come with me. He spoke like he was reluctantly granting me a favor. In the past, Sam rarely took me to events like this, always saying that as a housewife, the best thing for me was to stay home and take care of the household, rather than go out and be seen. But now, I no longer desired these opportunities. I calmly asked, "Is Ruby going to be there?" Ruby's studio is the event's main organizer. "All right, I'll come." The next evening, I drove to the banquet. I stood beside Sam as we entered the banquet hall. People approached Sam to discuss business deals, but there were far more eyes staring at me and whispers that I couldn't ignore. In many people's minds, Ruby, the woman from last time's news, should have been Sam's wife. Sam had hardly ever brought me to these events. So few in his circle knew me. Even at Emma's month-old celebration, only close family and friends were invited. One person looked at me, smiled politely at Sam, and asked, "Who might this be?" I immediately interrupted before Sam could answer, replying, "Hello, I'm Sam's wife." After their initial shock, the person's gaze toward Sam turned complicated. A husband with 2 wives? One could only imagine how messy Sam's private life was. Sam's expression darkened, and he muttered under his breath, "What are you doing?" I smiled indifferently. "What? Just telling the truth." Chapter 6. Soon, the banquet began, and as the organizer, Ruby walked out gracefully. Under the spotlight, Ruby looked elegant and luxurious in her haute couture evening gown. I narrowed my eyes, and just as Ruby was about to start her speech, I spoke loudly. "Miss Ruby, before we begin, I believe there are some things you need to explain to me." As I spoke, I displayed all the evidence I had gathered for the divorce. Before coming, I had these printed as photos. At that moment, with a wave of my hand, countless photos scattered through the air. People are always curious. Seeing everyone around crouch down to pick up the photos, I curved my lips into a smile. "Miss Ruby, I want to ask you, is being a mistress something honorable for you?" Everyone. Sam and I have been married for 3 years. But ever since Ruby returned, Sam has rarely been home. What happened between them? I don't need to say it out loud. I walked up on stage and raised my hand to slap Ruby. Ruby's face turned pale in an instant. She shook her head, her eyes red with tears. "No, it's not like that." But no one cared. I sneered and directly announced into the microphone, "I'm sure everyone here understands by now that I am Sam's legal wife. But from now on, I won't be. I am divorcing Sam." Sam rushed up, pulling me down from the stage, while Ruby quickly hid backstage under the protection of other staff members. The banquet hall was in chaos. Sam dragged me to the car. "What do you think you're doing?" I looked at him expressionlessly. "Divorce. Today was just a warning. Sam, I advise you to cooperate and get the divorce done quickly. Otherwise, I can't guarantee what I might do next." I pushed him away, opened the car door, and sat inside. Remembering something, I rolled down the window and looked at Sam, who was still in shock. I'm definitely fighting for Emma's custody. After all, a cheating father who made his daughter call his mistress mom, I'm sure the court will make the right decision. Seeing Sam's stunned expression, I sneered, started the car, and drove away. As soon as I returned home, tonight's incident was already trending on social media. My phone kept buzzing with notifications almost non-stop. I didn't even need to guess who it was. I directly turned off my phone and lay down on the bed, playing with Emma for a while. Everything that happened today left me exhausted. I lay in bed, feeling drowsy. Emma was very well behaved. Seeing how tired I was, she quieted down. Holding her in my arms, I fell asleep just like that. Chapter 7. The next morning, Sam appeared at my door, his face clouded with anger. With him was Ruby, who had clearly been crying for a long time. She clung tightly to Sam's sleeve, and when she saw me come out, her face immediately twisted in resentment. I crossed my arms and looked at the two of them calmly. "It looks like you've made up your mind." Sam clenched his jaw, seething. "Zoe, are you happy now? Just because I let Emma call Ruby mom, you're making such a fuss out of it? You're being completely unreasonable." I sneered, suddenly realizing that Sam was the most shameless person I had ever met. Ruby also spoke, choking with sobs. "Zoe, I think you really misunderstood my relationship with Sam. We're not what you think. Can you go and clarify things with the media right now? Almost every major company has stopped working with our studio. She said this as she took step after step toward me, finally falling to her knees before me. I'm begging you, Zoe. I know Sam has cared for me a bit, but he only did it to help me experience having a child. Don't blame him. It's all my fault. Zoe, please. Considering my current situation, can you go and clarify this with the media? As she spoke, her head drooped lower and lower. I looked down at her, my face expressionless. I had seen scenes like this too many times for it to affect me anymore. I stepped back in disgust, and Ruby's face turned even paler. Seeing this, Sam hurried forward to pull her up, then glared at me in fury. Ruby didn't do anything wrong. It's you who's narrow-minded, overthinking everything. Zoe, this is your last chance. Go clear things up with the media, and maybe I'll take you back. At his words, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Sam, it looks like you still don't understand the situation. Let me make it clear to you one last time. I want a divorce. I'll clarify things, but you need to sign the divorce papers. Then we'll go to the civil affairs office to finalize the divorce. From time to time, some passers-by walked through the neighborhood, taking a second look at the scene unfolding before them. Before long, whispers reached my ears. These two look so familiar. Hey, aren't they the ones all over the internet recently with that scandal? TSK. Shameless. And this guy. What a piece of work, letting his child call the mistress mom. Sam's face turned ashen, and Ruby's expression wasn't much better. Ruby tried to get up and hide in the car, but I grabbed her and tossed a copy of the divorce agreement into Sam's arms. Sign it, unless you'd like to make it onto the headlines again. Chapter 8. Sam glared at me hatefully but still obediently took the papers and signed them. I looked at the agreement with satisfaction, but Sam spoke again. Zoe, you'll regret this. I raised an eyebrow. I won't. In fact, I'm quite happy. After all, starting today, you and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. As soon as I finished speaking, Sam's face paled a bit more, but he remained silent, simply pulling Ruby into the car and speeding away. That evening, Sam called me again, but this time, his tone wasn't the arrogant and dismissive one I'd gotten used to. Instead, his voice was surprisingly soft. Zoe, I know what you said today was just out of anger. I realize what I did before was indeed too much. I'm sorry. Can't you just stop being mad at me? I understand you're upset about Ruby, but can we not get divorced? I was playing with Emma when I heard him, and I nearly burst out laughing. Sam, are you saying you're regretting it now? He was silent for a moment but finally admitted. Yes, I regret it. These days you've been away from home. I've been miserable. The housekeeper doesn't know where my favorite ties are, only you know. I hate mangoes and seafood, but neither Ruby nor anyone else has ever paid attention to that. But you always remembered. Zoe, I don't know when it happened, but my entire life has become filled with your presence. I can't live without you. I let out a cold laugh. Yes, once upon a time, Sam would never have cared about such trivial things. But every day, I tried to touch his heart with those small gestures. Every day, I arranged his clothes myself and tidied everything up for him. I cooked meals he loved, and even though I loved mangoes, I never let one into our house because he hated them. But back then, Sam only ever sneered at these things. And now, just as we're getting divorced, he's finally noticed. But what good does it do? No amount of regret now can make up for anything. It can't undo what happened between us. I gave Sam so many chances, so much love in the past. He didn't want it. And now that I don't want him, he's panicking. Sam, it's too late to regret now. Whether you love me or not, it doesn't matter to me anymore. You have no place in my life. My answer remains the same. If you want me to clarify, then we divorce. If not, let this matter continue to escalate. And perhaps I can add more colorful details to Ruby's life. Before Sam could respond, I hung up immediately. Chapter 9. Sam would agree. This situation never only affected Ruby. Sam's company and his own image were impacted to varying degrees. He might not care about what happens to Ruby, but he still needs to inherit his company. He would agree. Sure enough, that very early morning, I received a message from Sam. All right, see you at the Civil Affairs office. The next time I saw Sam was on the day we were scheduled to go to the Civil Affairs office. He looked a lot more worn out, and when he saw me coming out of the house, he immediately stepped forward. Zoe, you really want a divorce? I didn't bother to say much, just nodded. Sam fell into rare silence and opened the car door for me, looking visibly downcast. Let me drive you. I paused for a moment. No need. I'll drive myself. With that, I walked straight toward the garage, completely missing the growing gloom in Sam's eyes. When I arrived at the entrance of the Civil Affairs office, I received a call from my mother. Her voice was somewhat broken, her tone filled with anxiety. What do we do? I just took Emma out for a walk. And then a group of people took Emma. I tried to chase them, but they had a car and sped away too fast. I really couldn't catch up. What do we do? I stood there stunned, unable to believe what I was hearing. Sam had just parked at the entrance of the Civil Affairs office. Seeing me frozen at the door, he called out coldly, "Let's go inside." I tried to calm my unsettled heart and keep myself composed. Not today. I'll reschedule the divorce. With that, I ran towards my car. But the next moment, Sam grabbed my arm. What happened? What's going on? I hesitated, thinking that Sam was still Emma's father. Maybe he still had some feelings for Emma. Maybe, with his connections, he could help find Emma. Emma has been kidnapped. My emotions were on the brink of collapse, but the shock I expected wasn't there on Sam's face. Chapter 10. Sam's eyes flickered. What do you want to do? Call the police. Call the police immediately. Sam frowned. Even if we call the police, it will take them some time to find her, won't it? Sam's words were like a bucket of cold water thrown over my head. Yes, it would probably take some time for the police to trace Emma's whereabouts. What if something happened to Emma because of that delay? As my head cooled down, I caught a hint of something wrong. I stared at Sam with all my might. Do you know where Emma is? Sam didn't respond, but his silence said it all. I grabbed Sam by the collar, glaring at him. Emma is your daughter. Tell me, where is she? Sam paused. I'll take you there. I got into Sam's car and watched as he drove towards an increasingly remote area. Finally, he stopped in front of an abandoned warehouse. He got out of the car and opened my door. Emma is inside. Sam seemed to want to say something more, but in the end, he stayed silent. I rushed out of the car and ran straight into the warehouse. Inside the dim warehouse, Emma lay quietly in Ruby's arms. I stared at Ruby in disbelief. Ruby! Ruby looked at me and sneered. Zoe, you got here pretty fast, didn't you? I watched Emma anxiously. Emma was unnaturally quiet, clearly drugged by Ruby. What do you want? Ruby looked at me with hatred, and she threw Emma into the arms of the man behind her, then stepped forward and grabbed my hair fiercely. What do I want? I want to send you to hell. Zoe! If it weren't for you, how would I have ended up like this? Her eyes grew increasingly crazed as she spoke. Do you know? Because of you, all the things I did abroad were exposed. My studio is completely dissolved. All because of you. I grimaced in pain but forced myself to stay silent. Chapter 11. After Ruby came to find me, she made headlines again. But soon, the news blew up even more. Ruby's past in a foreign country was fully exposed. The illness was fake, but the fact that she would never have children again was true. However, it was because Ruby had been promiscuous while abroad, having multiple relationships at once. Due to improper protection, Ruby had gotten pregnant multiple times, but each time she chose to abort. As a result, she could no longer conceive. Upon returning to the country, she went straight to Sam. She portrayed herself as someone abandoned by a scumbag, a victim of a cruel fate and a tragic illness. Sam helped her set up a studio and even pulled some strings to provide her with resources. Since then, Ruby has flourished domestically. I clenched my teeth, stifling a groan. Ruby, you brought this upon yourself. It's your problem, so don't blame others for exposing all your dirty deeds. Ruby threw me to the ground, sneering coldly. Slut! Seems like you still don't understand your current situation. Don't forget, your child is still in my hands. As she spoke, she gestured for the man behind her to lift Emma. I instinctively screamed, "No!" Ruby laughed, looking down at me. "Zoe, you probably don't know this yet. The one conspiring with me in this kidnapping is none other than your husband, Sam." Just as she finished, Sam walked in from outside. He looked at me lying on the ground with a complicated expression, wanting to help me up, but I pushed him away. I glared at him with all my might. "Sam, Emma is your daughter. How can you be so heartless?" Sam lowered his gaze and looked at me. "Zoe, I just want things to go back to the way they were between us. If you clear up everything, say that Ruby's affairs abroad were fabricated by someone you hired. Say that the incident at the banquet was all a misunderstanding. I will continue to take care of Emma. Emma will still be my daughter, and we'll take care of her together. All right? After everything is over, I will send Ruby away, and we will be a family again, just like before. All right?" He spoke, his tone rare in its sadness. "Zoe, wouldn't it be good to be like before? Since the day I signed the papers, I've thought a lot. Maybe I really was too much back then. In any case, Zoe, as long as you're willing, I'll be better to you and Emma from now on." Chapter 12. I got up, step by step, getting closer to Sam. Then, I raised my hand and slapped him. "Dream on." Ruby sneered. "Zoe, you don't have the right to say no now. If you don't comply, your daughter won't live either." The overwhelming anger made my whole body tremble. I looked at Sam. "Sam, you are truly unworthy of being Emma's father, using your own daughter's life to save someone else's reputation. How could you do that?" Sam lifted his gaze and looked at me, sighing. "Zoe, I have no other choice. I am constantly torn between you and Ruby, but I still want to live a peaceful life like before with you." At some point, Ruby had pulled out a dagger and was holding it against the sleeping Emma's face. "Zoe, I don't have much patience left. Either agree to my demands, or your daughter dies here." Ruby had a smile of certainty on her face. I squinted my eyes, and then started laughing. "Oh really? Are you so sure?" Hearing my laughter, Ruby became furious. "Zoe, what are you laughing at? Do you not understand your situation?" I looked at her calmly. "Ruby, I'm no fool. I noticed Sam's strange behavior before coming here, and I knew it would be you. So, I called the police and notified my parents in advance. By now, they should be almost here." Ruby's face turned pale instantly, and her hand holding the dagger began to waver. I seized the opportunity and charged forward, knocking Ruby aside. The man holding Emma got a kick from me in his groin and immediately let go. I quickly caught Emma, letting out a sigh of relief. At the same time, the warehouse door was kicked open, and a group of police officers rushed in. "Don't move! Drop the knife!" I closed my eyes, and the long period of tension instantly melted away, leaving me feeling exhausted. But the next second, I heard Sam's panicked shout along with my parents' terrified voices. "Zoe!" I quickly turned my head, only to see Ruby rushing towards me with the knife in her hand. Looking like a madwoman, I held Emma tightly, instinctively trying to dodge. Still, my arm was slashed, leaving a deep cut. Ruby, relentless, raised the knife to attack me again. In the next moment, a gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Ruby fell to the ground. A pool of blood quickly spread across the floor. Holding Emma in my arms, I almost cried out, overwhelmed by the sense of narrowly escaping death. My parents rushed over and embraced me, and I could no longer hold back my tears. In my arms, Emma continued sleeping peacefully, as if nothing had happened. Chapter 13. Ruby was shot dead on the spot. Sam was arrested as an accomplice, and my parents hired the best lawyer to ensure Sam would receive the punishment he deserved. Emma was taken to the hospital for examination. She had been given a small amount of sleeping pills, but after treatment, she was out of danger. I officially divorced Sam. He left the marriage with nothing. His company went bankrupt due to his imprisonment. Thus, the once powerful corporation fell completely. Sam was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Before going to prison, He requested to see Emma and me one last time. I refused. Someone like him was not worthy of seeing Emma again, nor of being her father. With the assets I received in the settlement, I took my parents and Emma away from the city, settling down in a comfortable small town. My major in university had always been design. So now, after finally settling down, I began preparing to open my design studio. Before long, the studio was established. Because of all the attention from the incidents involving Sam and Ruby, many people noticed my studio. With the unique and distinctive designs, the brand quickly gained some recognition. Emma gradually grew up under the care of my parents and me. She remained well-behaved and sensible, rarely causing me any worry. Seeing Emma like this made my heart ache. I decided to put aside some of my work and take more time to be with Emma. I took her to see many sights she had never seen before. On Emma's 5th birthday, I organized a grand birthday party for her. In front of everyone, she made a wish. "I want to always be with Mommy." Touched, I pulled her into my arms. "All right. Mommy will always be with you, Emma."